macro recorder is extremely useful. It does have limitations, and the major one is that you can't make any loops like a for loop, and you can't make any if statements as well. It's absolutely impossible, and since they are the major constructions in programming, it is useless as far as that is concerned, but it's extremely useful for finding out how to do things. For example, let me just record a macro again. Macro record. Here it's hidden away a little bit this time, so record a macro, the control key, control H for example, and I'll, as I say, avoid the I'll explain that in a moment, but control H, and then what I didn't know how to do was to insert a shape on here. I didn't have any idea of how to get that started to make a shape on there, so I'll just stop the recorder at that stage. And if I go to my code down here, you can see that what it's done: active sheet shapes, add shape, and so on. And these look like the coordinates of the various segments of the, and then you end up selecting it as well. Well, I'm just going to delete that code. It just gives you an idea of how to get something started. So the macro record is extremely useful in that. If you go to do access VBA, then boy, do you miss the macro recorder. For example, Word has also got a macro recorder, and that's extremely useful to get you started with code. Now I'll just delete that, and I want to talk now about the personal macro workbook. And what we want to try and do is make a macro that works for all workbooks, all singing and dancing. Well, first of all, we start to record a macro. So record a macro, and we need another control key we're running out, and then, but this time I'm going to choose the personal macro workbook. Now it's going to start recording. Now I'm in trepidation really, because I'm not too keen on this personal macro workbook. So I click OK, and then I want to, for example, make something, I want to format it, for example, to make it currency. So I therefore will stop my recording and just see if it works. Type a number in, and oh, that's already currency. That's because I recorded the macro in this cell and made it currency. But let me move away here, and if I do a control K, I think it was, it makes it currency as well. If I try this even on a new workbook and then make that currency by control K once again, you see it works for that workbook as well. So we have got our macro working sort of universally for workbooks, but let's take a look. What's this over here? This personal VBALesson7b. It looks like we've got a new workbook here, and indeed we have. If I go into here to view, and then I need to make this a bit bigger to be able to see the unhide. I unhide this workbook. It's the personal VBALesson7b, a binary workbook, but that's irrelevant. The fact is that it is another workbook. So if I take a look at those and arrange them all in like vertically, you can see that there are two. There's the personal, and this is the one that I'm working on at the moment. So what Excel has done, it's created a brand new workbook. Now this is with you. If you're not careful, this can be with you for the rest of your Excel days, because this workbook is stored in a certain place. It's the Excel start folder. Let me just go and have a look. So if I were to save it, I'm just typing Excel start down here, XLSTART, Excel start, and you see it's searching for it. So now the Excel start folder, if you don't know, it's where you put workbooks which makes things start up automatically. The Excel start folder is where spreadsheets are stored that you want to start up. When you start Excel, this particular spreadsheet will start. So if we take a look in there in the Excel start folder, there will be probably nothing at the moment, but if you want to put something, as I say, which you want to start up automatically when Excel starts, then there you are, there's the Excel start folder. But if you were to save your personal XLSB workbook, that's where it's going to be saved. So if you need to delete it, you need to know where the Excel start folder is, and go in and find it, and then delete it if you do happen to save it. But I avoid saving it. So that I might just hide it back again. If I click that, that should hide my XLSB. If I indeed though try to exit from this, if I close Excel, it's going to ask me if I save book 2. Well, that's not going to hurt. I can save it or not. I might as well just save it. And don't forget, you need to call it XLSM if you are going to save it, and replace the other one. That's okay. But now look at this. It says personal Excel macro. Do you want to save changes? Well, in other words, do you want to save it? And for goodness sake, I think you should say don't save, because if you do have if you want to send macros or code, I should say, to somebody else, then you need to send that as well. So you've got 2 workbooks. So, and whenever if you did save it, whenever you open up Excel, you would be more or less condemned to opening up the personal macro workbook as well. You might say, well, I want something which is going to work from workbook to workbook, and I could perhaps even have something on the ribbon here to start up, or on this smaller ribbon up here. I could put my macros up there and start them, and they'd work for any workbook. Yeah, when you first when you first come across it, you say, yes, that's really what I want, but indeed you'll find out it's not actually. You'll find that when you're running code, it's really particular for a particular workbook that you're working on at that particular time, the techniques and so on that you need. You really don't need anything all singing, all dancing, but you may do. But if you really do, then you could use the personal macro workbook.